assistant professor at the University of Utah, where she makes serious games for sexual health, and she promises that her talk isn't as boring as the title makes it seem. I didn't write that. There you go.
Thank you so much. So the first thing I want to say is this project is really getting me down, and I'm really not happy to be here at all. April Fools, of course I'm happy to be here. Are you kidding me? Also, Todd said specifically that he would punch anyone who made an April Fool's prank, so come at me, bro, right? I'm ready for it. So I'm here to talk to you about a project that I'm super excited about, and I'm super happy and thankful to be here with you wonderful people. I am really happy to see so many keen faces in the audience. And what I'm going to do essentially is I'm going to tell you a story about de-risking technology. So this is me, and I have animated my slides because I like to waste time in Photoshop doing frame animations when I should be working. And what authority do I have to talk on this topic? Well, I have a book, shameless plug, that is just now out in paperback called Sexuality in Role-Playing Games with Routledge. So that is kind of my past research, which I will take you back to the past as part of my storytelling experience today. But first, to mention where I'm from, as Adam kindly said, I am based at the University of Utah. And I wanted to show photographs because we are super lucky, super blessed to have one of the most beautiful campuses ever, next to, of course, the campus we are currently at. But we have these beautiful, gorgeous mountains I'm absolutely in love with. We are so super lucky to have a dedicated games program. So I'm based in EAE, Entertainment, Arts, and Engineering, where we have a fantastic brand new lab space where we get to talk about games, teach games, and make games. And we're not beholden to computer science or film departments. We get to do everything that we want to do, which is super exciting, super fantastic. And this, of course, is a picture of me with my adoring students gathered around who could care less about what I'm saying, clearly. Yeah, they're lovely, lovely students. So I'm going to take you on this journey, which starts at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom, where I did my PhD. So my PhD was on sexuality in role-playing games, but as a side effect, I looked at how different objects like spin the bottle or sexy dice help impact or influence people's sexual behavior. So what I found was that games make a sort of risk mitigation tool. And this is particularly the case, this is a little bit from personal experience, not so much from research, but for queer teens growing up, playing spin the bottle and oops, it landed on my friend's sister, I guess I have to kiss her kind of things happen, right? So you're afforded this kind of premise of it's just a game, it's just for fun, this doesn't really have any impact on my identity, right? Which got me thinking when I moved down to London to start my first real grown-up job at Brunel University, about how we might be able to take games and this idea of risk mitigation and change it to use it for the good, for sexual health purposes. Also, I should have mentioned this earlier, slight trigger warning, I will be talking about sexual health care issues. I will not be showing photographs because I'm not that kind of person that wants to ruin your Saturday morning. I will be showing screenshots from NHS websites and things like that, but be aware that I will be talking about HIV, and we all probably know someone with HIV. So in case that's a particular issue right now, be aware of that. So I was in London. I started thinking about how I might make a serious game about sexual health care that could connect people to resources. And I started looking at working with the National Health Service. So in England and the United Kingdom as a whole, we were very lucky in that we had socialized medicine. So common barriers like cost or location or getting connected to services here in the United States that are a serious problem simply aren't an issue in the United Kingdom, which affords us a lot of ability to then address why people aren't getting tested, why people aren't getting sexual health care when there's no cost involved, right? So I think that's a fair issue to tackle. So I'm showing this screenshot from the National Health Service website, not because I want to do any kind of critique or I'm not trying to analyze this in any kind of way, but I want to show that it's pretty much designed to connect people to resources. So here's like, hey, something going wrong, put in your postcode, select the service you need, and we will connect you with a doctor that can help. Really oriented toward connecting people with resources, which is fantastic. So I started working on finding out why teens weren't going to the free clinic. But then I moved. I moved across the world. I moved back to the United States because 10 years to be overseas is a very long time, and I missed my family. Wow. So when I moved back to the United States and I started looking at doing this project, I was met by something very, very different. So this is a screenshot. Again, I'm not doing content analysis per se. I'm hoping to vaguely show you some cultural differences. So this is from the Center for Disease Control. This is not a read on them, because when the zombie apocalypse happens, they are going to be the only people standing between us and the infection. I love the Center for Disease Control, right? But if you are going to their website to look for information about sexually transmitted infections, first of all, they call it disease, which is a term I'm not really okay with because it tends to indicate that this is like for life, and it's life-threatening, and you will die, wow. When it's usually more of an infection, right? Sexually transmitted infections come and go, usually, not always, depending on the infection. Additionally, the top banner is there is now an antibiotic-resistant form of gonorrhea. Rah. Why bother getting tested? Because you are doomed, is kind of the message I got from this website. So that, combined with all these healthcare issues, the fact you have to have health insurance in order to get proper medical treatment, means that I did not feel comfortable making a nationally appropriate game that would be distributed to teens to help connect them to resources. That seemed like a total insensitive, horrible monster move to make. So what did I do? At this point in the story, I am here in Salt Lake City. This, by the way, it's really easy to do a topographical map of Utah because it's a giant square. And all the mountains are like little squares. It's perfect. So I thought, hey, I'm here in Salt Lake. Let's see what I can do local. Let's see if I can help people out locally. I applied for and fortunately was awarded an I-Corps Medical Innovation Grant from the National NSF Science Foundation. They gave me the money to come here. I'm so sorry I messed that up. Don't know why I just blanked. Saturday morning, everyone. So I got this grant. It's a very small grant, but it was enough to get me started in de-risking a type of technology that I could use to connect local teens who are at risk with this, which was super exciting. But then, where was I going to go? Who was I going to reach out to? So I reached out to a few different nurses and healthcare practitioners in the area and was met by a very lovely nurse called Jennifer Clifton, who is not in prison, but she works in a prison. She works in juvenile detention services. And I hope she finds this slide funny because I found it funny. I'm glad you do too, because it's a little risque. So Nurse Jennifer is amazing, amazingly supportive in this. And her stance was, we get all these kids in here who come from different backgrounds, a lot of LGBTQ youth who have sexually transmitted infections. Now, our traditional methods of giving them the stern talking to and testing them and giving them free treatment, which is awesome. So that cost barrier is broken down, which is fantastic. But there's a high reinfection rate, and we don't really know what's going on, and we need to help these kids mitigate risk or think about risky choices in a non-judgy way. That's really key. That was key for me. I'm like, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, let us not judge these kids, but let's make sure that they're being safe. Particularly, I want to make the point, although I'm sure you are all on board, yay, this is a really important endeavor. It's even more important, though, because just this January, a longitudinal study from Northwestern came out that says that interventions need to happen when kids are teens in juvenile detention centers, because unlike typical populations where you have your wild teen and young adult and sometimes adult and sometimes middle age and sometimes, you know, for me, it didn't stop until quite late. But you have these, your wild, crazy years, right? For kids in juvenile detention centers, that's not the case. That wild, crazy years carries on into the future. And some people think it might be because they start mixing with general prison populations, which are at higher risk for HIV and AIDS than others. But in any case, it's where we need to intervene. And if we want to be cold-hearted vampire monsters, it's a taxpayer issue, to be quite blunt. We know from the Utah Department of Corrections audit that healthcare costs increased 30% over the course of 5 years. So because the taxpayer pays for these kids to get treatment, it's in everyone's best interest that we lower infection rates, and also because we're human beings that care about people, right? Like we care about other people's quality of life. So I started thinking, let's not reinvent the wheel here. Also, fun fact, I used Samus Aran as my basis for my character model, so I could feel like extra cool. So when I started doing research, I was like, cool, what has been done before? Well, research has found, not necessarily games research, but intervention research has found that multiple interventions make a difference. So when the kids come into a detention center, let's give them some education. When they go to leave, let's give them some education. And then let's do a 6-month follow-up when they are at home with their families and give them some information and some education about condom use. And that was found to significantly increase the use of condoms amongst this population. Likewise, let's try and get mom and dad involved or any type of caretaker or guardian, because every teen likes talking about condoms with their parents, right? Apparently it works. I can't understand why. It seems so awkward to me, but it works. It's super effective. So maybe we need to get parents involved. Now, I am not a games evangelist. I do not think games are always appropriate as an intervention method. So I was thinking really critically, like, do we actually need a game for this? Or is this just, we shouldn't go there? But actually, this helped reassure me that maybe games could make a difference, because games could do both of these things, provide a multi-stage intervention and onboard families relatively cheaply. Not cheaply, but compared to paying salaried nurses to go and visit the homes of youth, pretty cheaply, right? So I decided to proceed with this project. But then I started thinking, what would successful intervention look like in terms of gameplay? Because I'm also a game designer, vaguely, sometimes. So in order to figure out what that design would look like, I decided to actually ask the kids who would be playing it. And this isn't something that has been done before in behavioral interventions in sexual health. And if it has, please let me know, because I'm dying to find more people who have walked this path before me. But there's a pretty good reason why we don't ask kids in classrooms, hey, what do you want to learn today? Kids often don't know what they need to learn or what they want to learn, but they do know what kind of games they like to play. So that means if I can figure out a game that they'll actually play and figure out the right messages to send, I can probably make a difference. So at this point in my little story, my little narrative, I decided to do something which is called a design box. This was pioneered by Roger Altizer and Jose Zagal, who are colleagues of mine at the University of Utah. And what this involves is essentially a focus group where I sit down with the kids and say, if you were going to make a game to help your peers have safer sex, what would that game look like? So let's talk about it in terms of what technology is available to you at the detention center. What kind of audience would we reach? Well, that's more of a question for me. But what type of aesthetics are appropriate? So should we use humor? Does humor appeal to you? Then, of course, I have to meet with the people in the detention center and the nurse caregivers to see if they're down with me making a funny game about sexually transmitted infections. Spoiler alert, I'm guessing probably not, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. So what about the results? We are now moving into current timeline territory. What results do I have? I am very sad to report that I don't have any results yet because I am still in the IRB process. It's absolutely crushing me at the moment. I love the IRB. I appreciate that they keep us all ethical, and I understand the risks of undertaking this project. And especially since I almost have the holy trinity, right? Like I have juveniles, which are high risk. I have people in incarceration, which are high risk, protected population. I had to actually exclude pregnant delinquent teens because I would have had the holy trinity of the most high risk possible project, which is quite fun. I'm excited about that. Institutional Review Board. Thank you. The question was, what is the IRB? So the IRB is the Institutional Review Board at the institution that I work at the University of Utah that makes sure that we are protecting our participants and acting in their best interest. So in this case, it's trying to make sure that I'm not doing anything that will cause harm to these kids because they've already had quite a rough life, right? It's actually not part of the grant that I have to go through this, but it's part of the university policy to go through this. And I actually had to do city training as well, which I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but that is to make me not a liability. So you're welcome. I'm no longer a liability, according to the university system. I don't even think I've sworn in this presentation, which is great. really doing good. Okay, so what does the future hold? Well, I'm hoping to actually make an artifact after I do this research. And actually, that's part of the reason I'm here today, because I know everyone in this room is brilliant and creative and probably has experience making sexual games or games that deal with sexual themes or serious games or games for healthcare or anything like that. So I would absolutely love to pick your brain. I would love to hear your ideas and advice for this particular project. And take it on board as I go forward in the future. So this is the sexiest slide of all, we're excited. But here's my contact information, so please do get in touch. Thank you so much.
While we're doing the technology switch, does anyone want a dance break? I don't want a stretch break is good. We can do a stretch. I don't dance, so I fear the dance break. But I see a hand up. Stretch break, yeah. Let's do it. Okay. Stretch break. Stretch break. So if you want to go ahead, and I believe the pointer should be looking at this actually plug in here. If it's not, we can.
Awesome. Oh yeah, you got that friends. You are today? No, where are you going? Where are you going?
We're like totally ahead of schedule. This never happens. Should we do anything else? Should we have any other activity? Completely derail everything? Yeah, stretch break. Okay, up next, my phone will cooperate. We have navigating self-care. And Mo Cohen is a self-taught programmer by day and a video game designer by later day. Currently making QueerQuest, queer as fuck. I love that point-and-click adventure game. She, her, they, or them, the pronouns. Like making faces at babies, giving other people's dogs new names, and eating Nutella out of the jar with a spoon. You're great. Okay.
Hi. Oh, it's bright over here too. It doesn't. Okay. It's like following. So, yep, I'm Mo, just like Adam said. I am giving a talk about navigating self-care. It's real. And this is like about navigating self-care when you're running a Kickstarter, when you're doing Greenlight, when you're running an LLC or just an indie game dev or a marketing campaign or just trying to survive day to day because there's enough things that require self-care all the time. So I'm making a game. It's called QueerQuest. That's a picture of it. It's in the arcade. Check it out. I do the programming and design and everything except for art and music. And it's awesome. It's a queer as fuck point-and-click adventure game. I like to describe it as like a Gay Monkey's Island meets a feminist leisure shoot suit. Larry. Ugh. Tongue twister. I gave up coffee recently and it hasn't helped me at all with this. So last October, I think it was, QueerQuest hit Kickstarter, which was stressful. I was running it solo except for some art from my artist. And I decided, what a good idea would be is to run a Greenlight campaign on top of that, because I thought, well, Greenlight will bring people to Kickstarter and people from Kickstarter will go to Greenlight. But really it also just brought trolls in and more stress. And on top of that, I have a full-time day job. That's what I do at my day job. Day jobs, yeah. And on top of that, I also still had real life going on, like, doing the dishes and maintaining my friendships. So I could barely see my game underneath all of this. And it was really, really stressful. I was not fun to be around. So what this talk is a retrospective of my self-care during that time. What worked for me, what didn't work for me, what I would do differently. So I'll start with the basics, why care about care. I know queer community especially gets the importance of self-care. Like, even if we suck at it sometimes, like, we know it's radical, we know it's political, we know it's vital. And I was constantly reminded by that during my Kickstarter because my friends would check in being like, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Which was really sweet. Like, they kept me onto my shit. And it's hard to remember always, like, passion work like QueerQuest. I love working on QueerQuest. It's my favorite thing ever, but it's not always self-care. Like, I stare at screens all day for my day job, and then I go home and stare at screens to work on QueerQuest, and, like, my eyes just hate me. Screen time is exhausting. Trolls on the internet are terrible. They're such a pain in the butt, and they, like, are really good at just saying that annoying thing that follows you around, and obstacles are frustrating. Oh, is that the thing where the mic cuts out? Obstacles are frustrating. So, like, I tried to put an ad on, Facebook? I was like, Facebook ads, that seems like an official thing that grown-ups do to tell people that they're making a game and raising money for it. And Facebook wouldn't approve it because the word queer was in the URL, which, like, I can't help because the game is called QueerQuest. So I had to, like, learn how to, like, let go of that and be like, okay, I don't really need Facebook's advertisements because obviously they don't know whatever. It's not my audience. It's fine. So I had to learn how to ignore obstacles that really grated on me. And what I really took away was that the victories never feel as good as the failures feel bad, which sucks. There's no easy way around that one, but it just helped me figure out that I just need to balance and make sure that, I guess, like, I had to make sure that I could recognize more victories than failures in myself so that I could feel like, even though the Kickstarter was going to fail, and it did fail, I could still know that it was okay and still a win in the long run. Also, I should have said that. The Kickstarter totally failed. I knew it was going to fail on, like, day 3 because of statistics. I was reading a million articles, and they're like, if your Kickstarter has 10% by the first day and 30% by the third day, then you're going to be great. And I was not at those places, which is fine. It got good press. It was successful in other ways, and it was, like, really awesome. And even though I knew it was going to fail, I chose to keep going on with it instead of, like, canceling it partway through because I didn't want to feed the trolls and I wanted to do the strong, graceful thing. So I knew that I needed to shift gears instead of making this a really successful campaign to making it like a really successful me not going up a wall experience from all the stress. So what didn't work? Too much of a good thing. I kept being like, oh, I'll reward myself with fried food, cool, but then I just ended up stress eating, and that didn't actually help me accomplish things. I tried emailing Steam support, being like, hey, why do you have green light? What a terrible process for people to go through. Like, why are people allowed to comment, and the comments aren't censored, but the discussion is censored? It was all really weird. And their response was like, oh, like, I mean, they're getting rid of green light now, but their response at the time was that the comments are there so I can know how to make my game more marketable. In which case I need to make my game less gay to make it more marketable, which is just boring, so I'm not going down that path. I try to plan self-care activities. So, like, I made a Google Calendar, and I filled a whole 1 week of it with plans of, like, on this day I'm going to tweet this stuff, and I'm also going to take a bath. On this day I'm going to, like, go eat whatever at my favorite restaurant or something. And I just ignored all of it. I never looked at it after I made it. I'm really bad at using calendars unless it's to, like, if I have an agreement with a friend or some sort of, like, I have this thing with someone else and they are holding me responsible for going to this thing. If I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to work on my game for 2 hours today and fix that animation cycle, like, I won't really do that. I know myself well enough to know that, so I should have just skipped the Google Calendar altogether. I am also terrible at delegating, especially at the last minute. I had this experience where I had to write 3 blog posts. They were really cool opportunities. It was like for Ms. and Bus and like all these rad places about my game. And it's hard to write 3 very different pieces about something that I really care about in 1 week. And one of my friends were like, oh, like, I'll help you write it. One of the blogs. And I was like, yeah, sure. But what I meant was no. mainly because I'm a control, like, I just really need control over, like, what my project says about me, because that's just how I am, and that's fine. But I should have seen that coming. I should have written blog posts beforehand thinking that, you know, I would actually have to do that during the month of Kickstarter. So then I made the mistake of eating Ritalin one night and trying to write blog posts all night. And that was also a terrible idea, because the next day I showed my blog posts to my friends for proofreading, and they were like, you know, this reads like you were on drugs. And I was like, how did you know? So I, like, lost sleep. I had to throw all that content out. I had to, like, stop and reset and write something that, you know, came from the heart, because this isn't just something I can throw out there. Like, I need my full attention and energy and effort into what I put out. So, it's easier to identify what worked for me. So there's a lot of really good positive things ahead, but recognizing and breaking bad habits is just as important. So, like, I know now, like, I don't write great blog posts on Ritalin. Like, I should have known that ahead of time, but sometimes you learn the hard way. So, stuff that worked. Cat gifts. That was something I could actually delegate to friends. They'd be like, what can I do for you? And I'd be like, send me cat gifts. They felt good. I felt good. It helped. This one especially. I can't stop looking at it. Okay. Keep it together. Baths also. I wasn't a bath person before, and now I'm a bath person. I don't know what flipped the switch. They just actually help me relax now. And cat gifts of baths, obviously. Or bath cat gifts. Consuming queer art really helped me. One, to unwind and stop thinking about my own project, and two, to get re-inspired, figure out what sort of, you know, canon I want to be joining, and what directions I want to go in, and also what not to do sometimes. There's this website. It's a pep talk generator. It's really cool. It's written by a bunch of radical feminists, and it's actually makes me feel good. I have friends that can give me pep talks and friends that can't give me pep talks. It was hard for me to figure out which ones made me feel better and which ones made me feel worse. And I had showed this link to a friend, like, a long time ago, and I was like, hey, like, I'm feeling kind of down about the Kickstarter, like, you know, everything's rough, whatever. And then she was like, well, a good friend would send me this link, and she, like, slid it back my way. And I was like, oh, right, like, this is actually a good resource for when I just, like, need that inspirational quote that doesn't suck. Another thing that really helped was this Steven Universe, great show. There is a meditation song somewhere in one of the seasons, like 3 or I don't know. And I would watch it over and over on a repeat when I was really stressed out, especially during, like, all of the comments from, like, trolls and stuff. Like, I picture all those little butterflies as, like, all the trolls just being like, we're butt heads, and me being like, oh, it doesn't actually matter. Okay. I actually ran into a friend who ran a Kickstarter too, and he was asking me, you know, like, what do you do for self-care since you're giving a talk about it? And I was like, that Steven Universe song. And he was like, oh my God, the meditation one. I was like, oh, you already know it. Okay. Yeah, it was just a really nice reminder that mindfulness is important, and being able to be like, all these things are going on, but I'm still here in this place and in this moment. Especially when the internet's so far away and so not far away at the same time. More stuff that worked. I had a little altar. I'm not saying that woo was like my way of self-care, but that routine every morning of lighting candles, setting intentions, and, like, pulling a tarot card to be like, okay, my perspective for today is going to be making connections or what have you. Like, it really helped me set the tone every morning. I had to keep up momentum via variety. Like, 3 blog posts in 1 week really slowed me down because it was the same thing. But when I mixed things up, like, make weird gifts and then do a panel and then do this other stuff, that really helped me stay engaged and not forget my message and my enthusiasm that I clearly have a lot of. Friends forcing me to go outside. So one time I was working on all of this stuff and things, and my buddy Chesh comes over, and he's all like, oh, like, okay, I'll help you write to Ellen DeGeneres. Let's get on Ellen. Cool. What a great goal. So we spent some time writing to Ellen, who never replied. That's fine. Maybe she will. And then my friend was like, hey, like, let's take a break. I was like, okay, cool. Like 5 minutes, whatever. We, like, talked, hung out. After 5 minutes, I was like, all right, I'm ready to get back to work. And my buddy was like, no, like, let's go outside. Let's like take a real break and actually step away from this. And that was vital. Like friends basically telling me when to stop, because sometimes I can't tell myself when to stop. I was lucky enough to plan a little getaway in the woods after the Kickstarter. So like literally the day that the Kickstarter ended, I was in the woods without internet, and it was beautiful. I had internet the first night, but I only watched Netflix. Second night I didn't have internet, and it was really peaceful and good, and just helped me go back to the mindfulness and be grounded again. I like how I think about mindfulness when I'm really stressed out. When I'm not stressed out, I forget about it. I really should be more consistent. Taking breaths all the time, like before I give talks, I probably should have done that. I think I'm talking really fast because I didn't do that. Yeah, breathing is good. I learned a lot from like meditation techniques basically on how to keep my shit together. More stuff that worked. Making fun of trolls. I know like within limits and whatever, but like this person on Greenlight, of course, said, "I bet a white heterosexual man kidnapped her." I had the pleasure of responding, "Hi, you'll have to play to find out who did the kidnapping, smiley face. But there aren't any characters like the one you described, so I guess that's not it." That person proceeded to comment for so long about so many things, and I just, whatever. But it was so satisfying to write that. I always responded to trolls thinking about who's watching rather than actually convincing the troll that they are who they are, because I'm pretty sure they know who they are. Another thing that really helped is reading Shrill by Lindy West. I just happened to read it the month before out of like this book club I'm in, and she's this Seattle writer. She's like fat positive feminist author. She wrote for like The Stranger for a while and stuff, and she had to deal with like so much shit. And her book Shrill is just like a memoir, like little snippets, really funny, really good read about all the shit she puts up with and how badass she handles it. And she was just a really good role model for me and how like a healthy way to deal with stuff looked like. That's the wrong card. Yeah. Okay. What's next? For you, make a list. What works for you? What doesn't work for you when you're stressed out? You can do it while you're stressed out, while you're not stressed out. I want to fix this mic so bad, but I'm just not going to do that because I want to like take it apart and everything. Make a list. What works, what doesn't work. I'll have my Twitter on like one of these slides, and you can send me what works or doesn't work so I can add it to my own list. Or maybe someone else will see it and that will help them as well. Know that self-care is not a cure-all. It's a routine. It won't make the stress go away, but it makes it easier to hate it less. And taking breaks is productive. It's like when you're at a game jam and you take a nap and suddenly you remember how to program again when you had forgotten to. It makes a huge difference, and it does help you move forward even if it feels like you're stopping. For me, my next steps, I'm going to try and track my phone usage so that, like, there's all these apps that do that now, and I want to figure out how much I stare at it. Extreme the Kickstarter, I was like all the time, and it was it wasn't helping me at all. Looking at the Kickstarter fail more didn't make me feel better. But yeah, I track phone usage. I also want to figure out time management things that work for me because I can't do Google Calendar for myself. I can do like the Pomodoro technique, which is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, but I need more variety because I like different things. Do I have other notes about these things? No, I don't. Okay, cool. So after the Kickstarter failed, I got greenlit, which is cool. Moved to Patreon, which has been much more relaxing. The game is still being made. The demo is in the lobby. It even says it's a bolder demo, so it has Kickstarter at the end of the demo. Ignore that. And tweet me your lists. If something worked, something didn't work, like I want to hear about it, mainly for my own good, so I can find more things that work for me. Awesome. Thank you all.
I think we're still ahead of schedule by a lot. You want to say one? Okay. Oh, I guess I should. Maybe. Yeah, just throw it on the ground. Probably. All right. So Tanya DePass. Oh, there we go. You could. That'd be fun. Yeah.
The top right corner.
Let's see what my toilet computer tells me. Tanya DePass. I mean, it is, right? It's not a smartphone. It's neither smart nor a phone. It's a toilet computer. Tanya DePass is the founder and director of I Need Diverse Games, a not-for-profit foundation based in Chicago. That is dedicated to better diversification of all aspects of gaming. I Need Diverse Games serves the community by supporting marginalized developers, attend the Game Developer Conference by participating in the GDC Scholarship Program, helps assist attendance at other industry events, and is seeking partnership with organizations such as Xbox's Gaming for Everyone and others. So it's just generally awesome. So,
good morning, y'all. Oh, come on. Thank you. It's this close. Morning-ish. So I feel a little bad because I'm going to be that salty presenter. So I hope you all have water, something sweet. So as you can tell by the title of my talk, I have things to say. And for anyone who's ever followed me on Twitter, seen me at other things, this is what I talk about all the time as a person of color who loves gaming. This is important to me. So it's good that we're running a little ahead of time in case I do get a bit wordy. If I do, just someone like wave at me and tell me to just move on. Where do I point this thing? No. And I have a computer science degree. That's what makes it funny. So this is the abstract. I am so not going to read this to you or at you because I hate to be at talks where people read their slides. I'm not going to do that to you. But that's the abstract that should be in your program and on the website. Feel free to tweet at me, quote me. Both my personal Twitter and the I Need Diverse Games Twitter is there, either one or QGCon tag. So I already had an introduction. Elizabeth Sampad took that amazing picture of me because you're going to be tired of seeing this photo of me because that is now my official headshot. So you may be wondering, how has the industry failed PSC? And does everyone know what PSC means? Yes, thank you. There are people who just give me that blank look, like, what? So in asking that question, asking myself, this was my answer. So can everyone read that slide? That is a screenshot from Mafia 3. Who has played Mafia 3? Okay, so for those that have not played Mafia 3, it is set in 1968, and you play a protagonist, you play Lincoln Clay, who is mixed race but reads as a black person who has come back from the war, and the game does not flinch from racism. And this kind of threw me the first time I saw it in the game. I was like, oh, they just really weren't messing around. I'm going to do my best not to cuss too much. I'm not going to use slurs or anything, because that's not productive. But I may swear just a bit, because this is me. I cannot get away from it. So I'm sure someone in this room is thinking this. Even if you won't say it, I'm sure someone's thinking it. But just think about it. Of all the games that we got last year and games that are coming out this year, we got 4 with a black lead. I couldn't even find numbers of how many had female leads. I know there's Horizon Zero Dawn, but that came out this year, so I'm not counting it. And the thing is, no one's really tracking this data. I looked up Pew Research. I looked up all these other sources for data. No one's kind of tracking how many games have protagonists of color, have women, have queer characters. So there's not good data. So I would love to say here are numbers. But unfortunately, I cannot produce what does not exist. And the very tiny text explains where I came up with the number 742, which is I went to Wikipedia, found a list of literally every game released in 2016. This includes every system, be it, DS, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, everything. So with Excel magic, I came up with 742 after I extracted all the numbers. And of those games, I came up with 4. So that's really shameful. Yes, citation needed. And as I explained, how do you explain this when you talk about, game characters that are in games, but also who's playing games? This is from Pew Research in 2015. I did not find updated data for 2016. I don't know if they're doing 2016, if they do this annually, biannually. But actually, more people of color are playing games than white people. I know, clutch your pearls, be shocked. And actually, more adults who own a console. Again, more people of color. So then you have to kind of wonder, why is the industry still kind of catering to the people that are not the majority of their market? That's a really good question because it's money on the table. Unfortunately, no. So they gave this very general breakdown. I can send you the full report I got this from. This is just part of a general Pew Research. Because I am not a stats person, but I did go in and dig these stats out for this talk. So, since I only have about 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about two main things. Why don't we get to be the lead, but also black hair? I am a person with dreadlocks. There are very few games where I get to have my hair. So that's a thing that happens, and I'm going to throw a little shade to one of my favorite places, and I'm sorry, John, if you're in the audience. But first I want to talk about Evan Narcisse. So if you get the chance, either on Kotaku or in the State of Play, he wrote a very, very in-depth and personal article called The Natural. And Evan is a tall, dark-skinned black man who has a natural, and even that is hard to get in games. You know, some games, that's the only option they give you, which is like a short fade where you just wonder, where's the barber following your protagonist because of fade? I mean, anyone who's played Dragon Age Inquisition, I just got to wonder, who was following Vivienne around and Dorian and fading them up every time they went out in the fields? True. That's why she never takes that hat off. That's why she never takes that hat off. But, you know, this is the thing. For a lot of people, they don't think about, oh, it's just hair. Well, for black folks, it's never just hair. It is very politicized. And actually, the other day, I was streaming and saw an article about some states literally making it illegal to hire someone with dreadlocks. Like, that can be a reason you not hire someone in some southern states. And it was just like, I don't live there. I would never live there. But come on, y'all. Because the woman who filed the case actually got a job offer, and it was rescinded. Because they're like, oh, well, you know, locks get messy, but not yours. But in general. And I'm like, I don't know. That's where the cussing came in. And I will spare you that because, all the cussing. But Evan talked about this, but he also talked about kind of when we do have black characters, they're not really the characters that reflect us. They're either stereotypes or they're tropes. They're usually, you know, characters that are very one-dimensional. They have no real connection to being a black person or a person of color in that game world. And a lot of games that do finally give you a person of color, it's like you just happen to be brown. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit. So again, go read Evan's piece. And, you know, if you are someone who makes games, think about this. And I'm going to say this repeatedly to anyone who asks me. If you are not black, if you are not a person of color, and you want to have that in your game, find a diversity consultant. Do not write a game, do not put a character out, and then be mad when people go, what is this supposed to be? So think about what it is you're putting out in the world. You know, there are plenty of people who would be willing to do so for pay. Do not ask people for free emotional labor or for free labor. Because if you email me, my first response is, here are my rates per hour. So think about that. No one's saying if you're white, you can't make a character of color, but just think about your responsibility if you do so. So go read Evan's work. He is unfortunately no longer at Kotaku. He's at IO9 writing for Marvel. But Evan's amazing. And he's got a lot of great stuff that's still on Kotaku about race. So these are my quote-unquote good examples. And the thing is, these are all old games. XCOM 2 is relatively new. XCOM 2 and then Guild Wars 2 is kind of evolving its MMO. Elder Scrolls, they didn't do much with the special edition. It's not like they up the graphics or anything. So this is still the same locks. And Dragon's Dogma is really old. It was initially out on the Xbox 360. So seeing this makes me wonder why this happens. These are all newer games. And if you notice, 2 of the characters on here are not human. So we can get characters that are not human that have our hair, but not the protagonist, or not, the playable character MMO, because Guild Wars 2 is especially guilty of this. The human characters cannot have dreadlocks. They don't get the same kind of afro-ish look for a character that you can give the one you're giving. So the Asura, other characters get to have natural hair, but others don't. So that's a whole other fight about othering and not having people of color, but having stand-ins, which are done poorly. And yes, I am picking on Mass Effect Andromeda because those 3 hair options are your only natural hair options in the whole game. And I don't know about you, but those braids would take a lot of maintenance. I mean, I need maintenance on my locks, and that's no. And the steel wool, I don't know what is going on there. And I'm going to pick on Horizon Zero Dawn because the character on the right, that's a white dude with locks. And everyone argued about it because the protagonist initially looked like she had locks in the start of the trailer that we saw like E3 a couple of years ago. Eventually changed to just braids, but then everyone else in this game, no matter their complexion, has these green finger-looking locks, which take maintenance. Just because it's the apocalypse doesn't mean you don't need hair care. So this is what we have to deal with in 2017 and 2016. So the other thing I want to talk about is, we get to lead barely, or most of the time we get to follow. We're NPCs, we're ambient characters, maybe, sort of, kind of. And if we are ambient characters, do we live, do we not live? Because, a lot of times if we are around, we don't get to make it. So here we go. This is what I found for 2016. So we have Marcus from Watch Dogs 2, Lincoln from Mafia 3, Virginia from Virginia Game. I should have an asterisk by that because as far as I know, no person of color is involved in the development. If I am wrong on that, someone please correct me. But you have a game with 2 black leads, 2 black women leads, and no one black was involved in the development. And in Battlefield 1, they use the Harlem Hellfighters in their marketing, but you don't really see your character because it's a first-person shooter. So this is our Slim Pickens. What? I did not Overwatch because you can have many characters. It is a shooter. But since Battlefield 1 specifically used the Harlem Hellfighters in their marketing, and I have mixed feelings about Overwatch mostly because I don't know the deep meta. I'm not in the fan community. I cannot play the game, unfortunately, due to motion sickness. So on the one hand, they get kudos for having a variety of characters, but on the other, a lot of the skins are very problematic. And the whole fan culture is a whole other thing. Like, even if I could play the game, the fan culture turned me off of it. And if I did play it, I would not play it with strangers. So this is my favorite argument to have on the internet with people because I always get, what about customizing? What about RPGs? That's not the same thing. So anyone here who makes games, again, get it. Frickin' Mike. I was going to swear. Customizing, what about RPGs? And that's not the same. Because you're giving me a blank slate where I can dress it up in a way that I sort of kind of want. Because again, most games I cannot make a literal version of me. Because in addition to usually not having hair, there's no body diversity. I am short. I'm a short fat girl. I cannot be me in most games and actually run around because they assume there's athleticism. They assume there's a lot of other things going on where I have a chance to kind of really be myself. Because I'm not running and jumping. If I ever got dropped into a game for real, everybody would die. Just so you all know. Look, if I woke up in the Dragon Age universe, we would just all be doomed. Just accept that right now. But I get that response a lot, usually on the internet, usually from the Fedora crowd, of, well, what about RPGs? And I'm like, okay, cool, that's nice, but I have played Dragon Age Inquisition far too many times for anyone's good, and none of these characters reflect me actually. I can make various looks, but there's no body diversity except through mods, and so if I wasn't playing on PC, I couldn't do that. And games will do everything to not have POC. There'll be elves, dwarfs that speak with a Scottish accent, griffins. No, seriously, if you play The Witcher 3, the dwarves have a Scottish accent, but there's no people of color except in DLC. So we have to pay to be brown in a game. And the narrative often ignores your choices. There are a few games ago, yes, you're brown or you're not human, that's usually where it acknowledges it versus your skin color. Which on the one hand, do I want racism in my game? On the other, do I want this acknowledgement to have a holistic experience? And so this is just kind of a silly thing that happened on the internet after Battlefield 1 started to come out. People actually said there was a thing called blackwashing. Please laugh. Because I laughed, and then I cussed, and then I laughed as I wrote a post about it. I tweeted very angrily for about an hour and then put it all in one post. And a lot of swears. If you would like the link, I will happily send it to you after. But the idea that you're somehow manufacturing blackness in a place that it did not exist when talking about the Harlem Hellfighters, which is historically accurate. Which is a little weird because historical accuracy, you're actually using... Did I kill the mic? Okay. Things... Hello? Okay. So this is just something I want to kind of end on and think about the fact that we cannot have a conversation about wanting more people of color in games. We cannot have a productive conversation without things like this happening. Or, being called slurs, being called, fill in the blank. When we go, it'd be nice to have, as a matter of course, someone as the protagonist and have them not be a stereotype, have them not be a trope. I mean, I know there are many games I could discuss, many games that, could be used as examples, but A, I've got 20 minutes, and B, a lot of those games that I have not played, and I don't want to speak on something I have not actually played. So just think about this. Think about what it is that you're doing when you make games or if you consume games. This is not just about, I make games and I want to be more inclusive. This is about who is playing the games, who is consuming them, and how are you making them feel. Because there are a lot of games where I kind of checked out once I realized that this game did not care about me. They did not care about the fact that I am a player of these games and I could be hurt or offended. And then when you do bring them up, it's like, oh, sorry, you were offended, which is not a real apology. So that's that. I'm the last speaker, so I don't know if we want to do questions. What are we doing? Oh, sure. Clap if you want.
I'm happy to bring the mic to anybody who wants to ask a question. And I'll put on that. Any questions?
Don't be shy.
Question?
I actually have a question for Tanya. So I'm hoping to be running a podcast that I want to do in a little bit. And one thing that I definitely want to do is have a diverse cast. So I guess one thing I'm worried about is I imagine a situation where I'm making characters on the fly. And I don't want to just accidentally make a bunch of white femmes because that's who I am. So I guess what would be any advice you'd have? Because I'm not just sitting down and I'm going to intentionally write this character. It might be, I need to think of something really quick.
So when you say a podcast, is this an in-character RPG type podcast? I would say don't do anything on the fly. Plan it all out ahead of time, especially because I do a podcast as well. Things that happen on the fly, there's no way to kind of fix that, especially if you're doing it live or if you're going to stream it. If you want to have characters, especially if you want to have characters of color or allow your players to do so, plan it out, ask what their plan is, ask what their backstory is for the character, and have all that ready before you record and kind of have your play session set. I mean, things will happen on the fly dialogue, but be ready to use the X card, which for those that don't know, it's you can hold it up or kind of display it and go, I need to break from the table, something happened, either a player made me uncomfortable, something else happened. So in terms of a podcast, especially if you're doing an RPG where people have to actually plan out their characters, make them do it, nip any problematic things in the bud beforehand, and reinforce that, if you decide to play a character outside of your experience, do the research. If you won't do the research, you can't play that character. Because I was at a tabletop convention, and that was something we talked about. Is that people have this cutesy idea of, I'm going to explore things, and it's that doesn't work. Or they want to play a slaver class in whatever system they're in. But they don't think about the fact that there's a black person at the table, because if you do that with me, it's not going to end well, just so you know. But with anything like that, especially if they want to explore outside their own identity, do that all in advance before you record. And then don't do it live. Have a chance to edit. And then if things do happen, sit down with your players, maybe not stop everything immediately, but sit down with the players after and go, the thing you brought up, the thing you want to do is problematic. Let's explore why, and let's see how we can correct that in the next episode or going forward.
I can just hand it back to her if you want to get back up. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
So
If someone, this is again for you, Tanya, when a person doesn't have resources to hire someone that is like a diversity consultant, is there any resources that you'd be able to give us that we can at least look into ourselves? Like for whatever reason, our project manager didn't give us resources to do that, even if we did ask. Is there anywhere that we can get those kind of resources to make more well thought out decisions instead of asking somebody for free work? Like, yeah.
Okay, so for those that couldn't quite hear the question because of the mic, so if you want to do your due diligence, if you're making a character outside your experience, how can you do that if you do not have fiscal resources? I would say look at the background of your character. Think about what it is you're trying to do. Are they a person of color in like the 50s? Are they a person of color set in modern times? Also look up tropes and stereotypes. Make yourself a checklist and go, does my character hit any of these notes? Are they sassy? Do they speak with slang? Do they only act a certain way because, in the back of your mind, that is how you've always associated a person of color or like a black person. Are they black and queer? Are they, Latina and, maybe having identity issues because they're very white identified or, they look more white than dark? Because that has come up with some people where I've had I've had discussions with people who feel a way about the term people of color because they are very light passing and don't feel like they should or can use the term people of color. So kind of draft out a backstory, think about your game setting, and then research those terms, kind of like people of color in that era. And, and if you are going to do things like Mafia 3, it was very intentional with showing racism. Do your research. They spent a lot of time looking at movies set in that era, looking at how people of color were treated in that era, and went from there. And they did have black people on the writing staff. But do your due diligence. And then maybe after you do that and go, okay, look, I've done the work, I've done the homework. Can I still go out and kind of push your case for paying someone? Because no matter how good your research is, there's still an opportunity to fail. But at least if you can show that you've done the work, you can go, this is everything I've done. Unfortunately, we didn't have the resources to pay someone. And since I didn't want to take someone's time for nothing, this is where we are, and acknowledge any mistakes you make and accept them and be open to critique after the game is out.
I see you. I see another hand back there. Was there one over there? A couple over there? Okay.
Mine is also for Tanya. You're just very popular. I'm right here.
okay.
I have is a two-part question. The first part is just like, thank you. I've been yelling about this since I was like 11. And it's just nice to see it on a big screen. And then the second part is, how do you cope? And this is also for the person next to you whose name I didn't. Mo, yes. How do you deal with, or what are some tips for coping with these things pointed at you, like comments and trolls when it's specifically racial? Do you have like any coping mechanisms that would be useful?
You're welcome. I'm glad I'm not the only person yelling about these things. For racial stuff, I usually just kind of block with a smile. It depends on how I'm feeling that day. Usually I just kind of block and don't give people the satisfaction of arguing with them because it's a waste of my time. That is time I could be going and doing other things with my time, like streaming or having a drink or anything other than being online. And once in a while I do get a little feisty and I play with people. And I come back with facts and logic. And I go, when you learn how to play with the big kids and can actually argue, come back. And usually that's more for the benefit of people who think that they can come in and troll me. So slight content warning, I have talked openly about having an abortion when I was in my 20s. I got worse hatred for that, and both racial and religion and everything else, than I did talking about gaming, which, doesn't surprise me. But, I got monkey photos sent to me. I got things like that sent to me. And I usually just block them because they're taking mental energy from you and they're not worth your time. People who have literally nothing better to do than to be on Twitter and be on, well, not on Facebook because my Facebook is pretty locked. They really just have nothing to do. And I'm talking about spite later. I spitefully just go, well, at least people care about what I have to say and what I have to do. You literally have nothing else in your life right now that you are going to go troll Twitter. And I usually just block them. And I usually do it with a big old smile. And I go have a glass of wine. But, there are things where it's just don't give them the time. And I know that sounds very, Pollyanna, don't feed the trolls. But at the end of the day, these people are not going to learn. They don't care what you have to say. They're not going to listen to you. So they're not worth the time.
I usually smoked pot. I would try reading the things out to friends to rant about it, and they would be like, oh, blow it off, whatever, and then they would get some criticism about their own art, and they'd be really upset, and I'd be like, oh, you should just ignore it, whatever. Which is so much easier said than done, but it's better than letting it get to you. And yeah, it's not easy either way.
It's good exercise.
Hey, so this is, I guess, a question for anyone. So I'm working on a project in which I have to design a bunch of, default avatars. And something I've been struggling with is, trying to diversify what a default avatar might look like to help represent different people other than generic white man with nice haircut. But something I keep running up against is, so say I draw a default silhouette with a fro, then I showed it to my white coworkers and they were like, why did you draw this broccoli? Or if I use a gender neutral haircut, then they're like, oh, it kind of looks arbitrary, shaggy haircut. Things that for me as a person of color, I recognize as, oh, that's a gender neutral haircut, or oh, they must have locks or a fro or something, is not always recognizable by everyone else. And so then I kind of get pinned in these sorts of weird things where you want it to be recognizable, but it's not necessarily representing the communities that it's going to be used for. So do you have any, I guess, tips on dealing with scenarios where it's you get one image, how do you kind of work with what you got?
Since I don't make games, but I do get this question a lot, I would just say exclude the white dude. That's what you get on the artist. I mean, that's just me, but I just made a face. I don't know if you saw it when you said broccoli. I was like, what? What do you mean they saw black hair as broccoli? What kind of broccoli are y'all eating? But I would just say, especially if you have that kind of control, you get your one bland white dude, but that's you keep that in your pocket till later. And then if they don't force the issue, just put out everyone as a person of color, someone who has brightly colored hair. Do things that push the default away from same scruffy white dude, because everything is same scruffy white dude, and I'm so over it.
Yeah, I'm making a game, but I get to do what I want because I'm making it. I don't know how corporate your job is, or if you have a boss or anything that it's super corporate. I don't know if talking to your boss about these concerns would help. Just being hey, I've had these conversations. I really want the game to go, to go in this direction. I feel resistance for these reasons. That's not a fun battle to fight, but just keep giving them what they aren't expecting. Basically, your turn. Yeah.
Hi again. You may remember me from 20 minutes ago. Because I'm such a nerd, right, I go for stats. So depending on the area or geographical location, find out what the average citizen looks like there, because then you have a really strong support. Here's demographic data that says that, recently it said the United States in 2020 is going to be 60% people of color. or mixed race individuals. So there's really strong evidence for not only, as Tanya said in her presentation, hey, most gamers are people of color, but also, most people in the United States or wherever you happen to be setting your game are not white. So why make white people? It's just like the logic breaks, right? And you're just like, what kind of mental gymnastics?
So I just saw your hand, but I know there were a few over here. One here.
I think this is mostly for Ashley, but everybody else can chime in. Who are the influencers of the incarcerated youth, and do they identify as being LGBTQIA, or do they are they on the DL, and is that part of the problem that you're challenged by?
So what do you mean by influencers?
The people in their lives that influence their behavior, whether it's people incarcerated with them or peers.
Okay, so influencers was people who have influenced, like literally, I should have gotten that. But the people who influence the choices that these kids are making. So that's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of the focus group. I'm hesitant to give a direct answer right now because I'm not sure that I know that. I know that a particular issue, statistically speaking, that we have in Salt Lake is we have a high homeless LGBTQ youth population because, and not to throw any particular group under this, but we have some really conservative viewpoints there. We have some really conservative religious viewpoints in particular. And so kids are thrown out of their home at quite a young age, and that's where we see this sleeping rough, where trying to make a living, then prostitution, drug use becomes an issue. So I know that from larger city data, but I don't know what the individual kids' stories are. So I'm with you, I am super interested to hear what that's going to be all about. So those kids definitely have stories to tell. Thank you.
Hi, thanks to all of you guys. I mean, it's like a super, super interesting panel already to me. I have a question also for all of you concerning diversity of avatar constructions, and if you actually think that there's a connection between the story and the avatar construction, because it's not only, right, like the enforced male Caucasian avatar, but it's also usually the warrior. And that's also one of those things that quite often, most games are really kind of, I'm shooting something somewhere. So I'm wondering if there is anything that you have noticed that, privileges, diversity in avatar construction, if it's not a war game or like a first-person shooter or something in that neighborhood.
I'm not sure exactly how to respond, which I don't know why I'm holding a microphone, but so the question is around avatar creation in non-shooters. Yeah, it's hard to do custom character creation and have that custom characters creation play directly into the storyline, because it's not like you create their past when you're creating what they look like in the game programming side of things.
Well, I haven't thought about it in the context of usually being a warrior. Because are you talking about like the avatar as in kind of like what you're staring at, or the character you create?
So I was just wondering if that kind of storytelling default that is is that one of survival?
Oh, I see. So usually like Battle Survival or / the hero's journey usually gives us a white male protagonist as the savior. And that's definitely a privilege. That's what I like so much about Mafia 3, because it's not the hero's journey. You are a black dude who actually gets to get revenge, which we never see. You know, you're someone who is taking vengeance for what has been taken from him. And it's definitely a privilege, and I think that's why a lot of people were bothered by it. One, because like a black dude wiping out the Italian mob, but it's a black dude who takes his agency back and gets his. And he, don't get me wrong, I'm not romanticizing Lincoln Clay, because he is a violent man. Because as you progress, the way he kills people, it just gets a lot worse. But it's definitely a privilege, and that's why we get mostly white dudes as protagonists, because there's also the fallacy of it's what sells, and actually it's not.
So we've got only a couple minutes left. Is anybody waiting? Or, yeah, okay. This should be a video game if they're running the mic back and forth.
So this is for Mo? Okay. So I came in late to your talk, so I'm not sure if you covered this in the beginning or not, but I was really curious about your sort of discussion of the experience of doing a Kickstarter versus doing a Patreon. And I wondered if you would be able to talk a little bit more about that in terms of just like, you know, your own mental and emotional health and how those two different models are different for someone who's a creator and the experience sort of that way.
Okay, so a little backstory. I chose Kickstarter because I knew people who had worked there. I had connections, and they were like, yeah, Kickstarter has that name value. The day I launched it, I found out that if you use Indiegogo, then you actually get to keep the money, even if it fails. And so I was immediately, like, shooting myself in the foot. Patreon is so much less stressful, at least for me personally. It's like running a marathon instead of a sprint, which I'm way better at sustaining a steady line. I don't promote it as much. I don't work as hard at it. So I don't get as much back from it, but it's also a really cool tool. And I know a lot of, rad creators, like, I know Tanya's also on there. I feel like it's a lot more community oriented than Kickstarter. Yeah, less stressful. Everything I say about it is positive. They finally added polls also, which I really appreciate, because I'll be like, what scene do I work on next? Oh, I'll just ask some people who, you know, can make a decision for me and are also invested in making decisions for me, which is cool to have that sort of fallback and get feedback and opinions. And yeah, it's just a nicer place to condense all of that traffic. I'm super pro Patreon. Yeah, so Patreon is like, you know, X amount a month. And so, yeah, I think because Kickstarter, people see the end price tag and they're like, oh my God, it costs that much to make a game. And it's like, no, it actually costs more than that to make a game. Like, I don't know what, yeah. So the Patreon just sort of shows that it's an ongoing journey and keeps the development blog sort of like an open connection. Yeah, we can talk more about it also if you have more questions later.
I actually have a quick follow-up with, actually, if you wanted to maybe connect the mic, connect that to your experiences with a grant-funded project that's being overseen by an IRB and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got stakeholders for days and shareholders for days. So the grant that I have is just a small seed grant, which is just focused on de-risking, but I have a certain, like, I can't hire students to work on the game. Because I'm not actually meant to be making a product right now. I'm meant to be de-risking, which requires research. But they have such strict limitations on what I can and can't do but I found out that they would let me spend it on a conference for the purposes of networking, so hi. They'd also pay for a hotel, so hi. So, but my end goal is to follow up with that and get another grant, hopefully another National Science Foundation grant, since I can remember the name now, and actually be able to hire people and pay them, because I'm not going to have people work on a game without paying them, and I'm going to be sure that those stipulations are gone. But then I have to deal with the state, right? So doing work with the Juvenile Detention Center means that I am beholden to the state of Utah, which has very particular political leanings. I'm also beholden to the nursing staff that works there, and it goes on and on and on for days. So I didn't really think of it until Adam said so, but yeah, you're right. I'm in a very similar, but you guys you have a self-selected population that chooses to sponsor you, so then who are cool compared to the Utah Department of Corrections, which, can you imagine if they were in your Patreon? They would be like, yeah, right, yeah. Oh, man. Sorry, how to find the grant? I have amazing, so this is something that I think the games community that we're a part, hopefully, I'm trying not to speak for everyone here, but they're really cool people that will give you a hand. So I owe a lot to Professor Roger Altizer, who really is my mentor and who helped me out a lot in finding grants and teaching me how to word things so that grown-ups will believe that this is useful. Yeah. So thank you so much. Please come and chat to us afterward, because I think we're out of time. But...
Yeah, can we have a round of applause? Thanks to everybody, and we've got another panel coming up here immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adam, Ashley, Mo, and Tanya, for that wonderful start to this weekend.